Greetings. Thank you for joining us this evening for Election 2020 Candidates Virtual Forum for the offices of Livermore Mayor and for Council Member representing District 3. How timely it is to host this on National Voter Registration Day. If you have not registered, please do so by visiting the website of your County Registrar of Voters. Greetings. Thank you for joining us. I am Dawn Argula, CEO of the Livermore Valley Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber is pleased to once again partner with the Pleasanton Weekly and with Livermore Indivisible to host this evening's forum. Thank you to Amos Productions for producing tonight's event. Over the past 6 months, Amos has played a key role in keeping the Chamber connected with members, businesses, and with the community, delivering professionally produced virtual events. And thank you to the candidates for participating in tonight's forum: Brittany Kik, Peter Patterson, Moni Knopp, and Bob Warner. Running for office and campaigning for votes is not for the faint of heart. Your courage and determination in running a serious campaign is admirable. The desire and dedication for public service is to be respected and appreciated, regardless of which candidate one supports. I wish you the very best. Public service is serious business. Being responsible stewards of public investments and policy is often at odds with the realities of changing conditions on the ground, as we see now during the COVID-19 pandemic, expectations of an increasingly more engaged community, and the need to plan for a strong and healthy vision for the future that goes beyond a 2 or 4 year term. Tonight, we will hear from each of the candidates on a number of topics that affect the city of Livermore and the Livermore Valley: transportation, infrastructure, housing, public safety, fiscal strength, and business. Do you have the qualities necessary to lead? Do you collaborate, communicate? Are you thoughtful in your deliberations as you judge the facts? And finally, are you decisive? I think that these forums, think of them as a job interview. It's an opportunity for viewers to get a glimpse at the potential of the candidates. Viewers may be interested in digging deeper, and I hope will take the opportunity to follow up with each candidate after the forum to answer any outstanding burning questions they may have. In closing, I remind each of you to please vote on or by November 3rd. And now, I turn the program over to Gina Chanel, President and Publisher of the Pleasanton Weekly. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dawn. Welcome to the Livermore Mayoral Candidates Forum. We have 2 candidates for the mayor's seat: current Councilman Bob Warner and real estate professional and former police officer Moni Knopp. This is the first of 2 forums tonight, with the candidates for Livermore District 3 answering questions about issues related to city governance beginning at 7. I'm Gina Chanel, as Dawn said, President and Publisher of the Pleasanton Weekly. Jeremy Walsh is online here. He's the editor of the Weekly and is my co-moderator tonight. Thank you to our partners, Livermore Chamber of Commerce, Livermore Indivisible, and particularly Jody Amos of Amos Production for producing and recording this. Many community members have submitted questions prior to the event, and we thank them for that because we will not be able to monitor chat. All of our questions are variations of the questions sent on common themes that affect the city and its residents. The candidates were not given the questions prior to this event. We will start with 2-minute opening statements. Each candidate will then have 90 seconds to answer questions. A countdown timer will be visible to everyone. Candidates going over the time limit will be alerted and stopped. At the end, each candidate will have 3 minutes for closing statements. So we're going to go in alphabetical order, and that means candidate Knopp will give his opening statement first. We will alternate who speaks first during the questioning portion of the program. Candidate Knopp?
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking the Chamber of Commerce.
I think you might be muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking the Chamber of Commerce and the Pleasant Weekly and the Livermore Indivisible for hosting this forum and allow us to share our thoughts and concerns for Livermore. So during the first 11 years of my life, I grew up in the killing fields of Cambodia and the refugee camps in Thailand and the Philippines. I came to America 37 years ago without a penny to my name or the ability to speak a word of English. My life in America began humbly by dumpster diving for aluminum cans and working as a migrant worker in the farmlands of Stockton. At times, I had to work 3 jobs in order to make ends meet, including working a full-time job while attending the evening police academy. I had to work very hard for everything that I have today, which keeps me humble and grounded. I graduated from the police academy and was hired as a Livermore police officer on December 4th, 1995. The day that changed the trajectory of my life and the life of my family. I'm grateful that many of you took me in, showed me the kindness of Livermore, and allowed me to serve 17 years as a police officer with honors, distinction, and compassion. In 2012, I decided it was time for a new challenge. I became a successful realtor with my own small business in downtown Livermore. Serving as the National Public Policy Committee Chair for the Asian Real Estate Association of America, I work with members of Congress to help increase home ownership for Asian Americans and other minority groups. I also founded 2 nonprofit organizations, Rising Young Leaders, and co-founded the Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance, which now serves over 400 nonprofit organizations. I'm running for mayor because I care about the people of all of you and the future of Livermore. I would like to lead our city in a vibrant path forward while ensuring that we're safe, everyone is represented, heard, and included. My top priorities for Livermore are ensuring fair and just public safety for all, building downtown now, establish an economic task force of Livermore to help all businesses impacted by COVID-19, mitigate homelessness with a short and long-term solutions, increase access to affordable housing.
We need to stop you, candidate. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
2 minutes is, but you'll have a closing statement. So, candidate Warner.
Yeah, I'd like to begin by welcoming everyone. I'd like to thank the Livermore Valley Chamber of Commerce and the Pleasanton Weekly for holding this event tonight, allowing me to participate. And I'd like to thank everyone who's spending their valuable time to watch. I'm running for mayor because these are unprecedented times, and they call for experienced, effective leadership more than ever before. And this is my 9th year on the city council, 3rd time as vice mayor. And my track record of accomplishments shows that I'm fully prepared to be your mayor on day 1. My candidacy is broadly endorsed by community leaders and organizations who have seen me in action for years and know what it takes to be mayor. That includes Mayor Marchand and all of my fellow city council members, current regional and former elected officials on both sides of the aisle, and numerous local business and trade organizations who depend on Livermore's future remaining bright. In addition to my decade of service to Livermore on the Council and Planning Commission, I bring a wealth of technical and professional business experience to help govern the city. I spent the early years of my career as a physicist. After getting an MBA in finance, I've worked in the banking and high-tech utilities industries in a variety of leadership positions, primarily in finance and strategy. I also served as a captain in the U.S. Air Force Reserve. As to my personal background, I came to Livermore 44 years ago. I discovered our city is a great place to live and raise a family. I've got 2 adult sons that went through the school system. And I'm married to Nova Starling, a local artist and founder and president of an educational nonprofit. In closing, I will continue working hard for Livermore's future by building on my established relationships and collaborating with our community and my fellow council members and regional leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to move on to the questioning portion. And as a reminder, you will have 90 seconds to answer. Jeremy, can you take over?
Thank you, Gina. Our first question, as we said, will go alphabetically and we'll help guide you through that. The first question will go to Bob Warner. First, the COVID-19 health crisis and shelter-in-place orders will soon be entering their 8th month. The city has launched a grant program, but what other programs should be introduced to aid and protect businesses and residents who have been so negatively impacted by this pandemic?
Well, thank you for that question. I'm the one who launched the 2 million matching fund for our businesses. And what I've been doing for the last several months is working with individual business sectors to see what they need and to develop programs as they become available. I think we've also seen, in addition to the $2 million matching fund for Help the Businesses Pivot, we've also got the Economic Development Department is providing them with information. And we've got the temporary eviction moratorium and things like that. Also working with the realtors, the landlords, to try and help them share in the pain. So I think there are a number of things that we're working very hard on over we've been doing it for several months. And I think as times evolve, we'll come up with more. But personally, I'm quite worried about the businesses, especially the small ones, getting through the coming winter. And I would also encourage, in addition to the city programs, that the citizens do everything they can to visit our businesses and buy locally as much as they can, because we really need the help.
Thank you. Moni Knopp. I do think you're muted.
First and foremost, I hate to see anyone being displaced by the impact of COVID-19. And I know that many of you are out there being impacted by this crisis. If you are, I'm sorry that you're going through the difficulties in your life. First, I will work with the city manager and staff and ask them to look at various ways how we can help our residents. I would be in support of continuing our rent moratorium if there's any already in existence. I will continue to support the many amazing local nonprofits such as Open Heart, Access Community Health, Tri-Valley Haven, City Service of Tri-Valley Senior Support Service, and Sun Spectrum. And for me, have always been about starting knowing what the needs are and then finding ways to help bring resources. As far as helping the business, I support the city's program, the Small Business Grant Program now, where business can apply for between $2,000 and $20,000 from the $2 million general fund. But one of the things I will do differently, I would establish an economic task force of Livermore to include various business owners from throughout the city and work with them to find ways how we can help businesses survive and thrive. I am personally a small business owner myself, and I will do everything, and I know that I will work with the city in doing everything that we can to help small businesses and our residents here in Livermore.
Thank you. Moving on to question 2. We will start with candidate Knopp. The other major storyline this spring and summer has been social justice reform. As mayor of Livermore, what specific types of actions will you take? What policies will you recommend to affect positive change in the community policing and criminal justice? Specifically address reallocating funds from the police department budget for mental health services and your thoughts on an oversight commission.
Thank you. That's a great question. Very, very, very relevant. First of all, I'm not in favor of defunding police. As a former police officer of 17 years myself, I believe in law and order. Public safety will always be a priority for our city. It's important that we all feel safe and we live and where we live, and having a great professional police force is a huge part of that safety net. I am in favor of reallocating some funds for more de-escalation training for our officers and for more mental health professionals to work with them as well. For those of you who are out there believing in the defunding of police, I hear you, and I hear you loud and clear. I hope that you'll sit down with me and let me know your thoughts, concerns, and how we could do better. More importantly, I encourage you to get involved in the political process to make sure your voice is heard. For me, I am not in favor of a citizens oversight committee at this time. However, that will be subject to change if I see evidence that we have issues in this area.
Thank you. And candidate Warner.
What I would say, and something I would continue that I've already started, was this is a very serious issue nationally and locally, and we've seen many bad things happen in our surrounding cities. I don't think it's going to happen here to the extent it has elsewhere, because I believe from what I know of our police officers, policies and procedures, and what the previous police chief has been putting in place for the last 7 years, I think we're starting from a very good place. But we do have to pay attention to what's going on. And as a result, I initiated an equity and inclusion subcommittee of the council, and associated with that is a working group of citizens. And we've been able to recruit 50 people to join and figure out what is it that we need to do. And we're not going to be starting with solutions. We're going to first start with what do we aspire to be as a community? Where are we now, and how do we close the gaps? And we have 6 major areas that we're going to be leaning into with respect to being an equitable and inclusive society. One of them is the policing and human services policies. And what we're going to be doing there is reimagining and better coordinating public safety and human services for better outcomes. And ultimately, depending on what that working group recommends, that's what we'll do.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Bob Warner. How closely have you watched debates in the state legislature as they work to address the affordable housing crisis with bills that could greatly impact Livermore? What ideas would you advocate for on the local level, especially in light of the upcoming regional housing needs allocation cycle?
So I haven't watched the debates live, but I have read quite a bit about them. And for sure, the regional housing allocations and how they're carried out is very vitally important to Livermore. That's why I'm running for mayor, because I can be effective at the beyond Livermore and the regional level. And what I would say in general, we absolutely need more affordable housing, especially at the low end, and we need to be able to encourage that. Fortunately, because of the subcommittees that we also have on the council and working with the Human Services Commission, Livermore has been able to get the lion's share of the county money for numerous projects that we have underway. And that's, we've also got the tiny homes project that's going to be happening in the next year. For about 30 homes for people at the very low end of the spectrum. We're getting multiple millions of dollars from the county, and the church is also helping and contributing, and the city is waiving its fees. So there are many things we can do across the whole spectrum, but the key, I think, is broadly encouraging what we do here. But I would also say I am not in favor of giving up local control, but there are good things we can do cooperatively in a region and statewide.
Thank you. Monina.
Thank you. To me, housing is a human right issue, and everyone should have one. I remember when I first came to Livermore, all I could afford was a condo, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo for my boys, raising them as a single father. So I understand it greatly. It's hard. It's very difficult. And as a realtor, I see the prices have jumped up quite a bit, and I understand that quite a bit as well. And I am concerned. But I would like to support looking at increasing the 15% below market rate homes that are required for builders to build with the new development now. And because not everyone can afford a single home, I would support various types of housing for various levels of income to include more duets in our city. I would also support more public and private partnership, such as the project between the state, city, the state, and federal governments, and nonprofits such as the Chestnut Square project, where some of the units were designated for low income, homelessness, and seniors. We need more of those projects here in our town. And I would support the workforce housing, such as the 130 units designated for downtown. This way, our police officers, firefighters, teachers, nurses, and young people can afford to live here too. We have to find various ways to allow our family to live here, especially with your own children. Those of you who have children, you know you want them to be close by. And I support that. I would like to see more various housing so they too, just like my children, could stay with me nearby here in our own city. Thank you.
Thank you. On to question 4. We're going to start with candidate Knopp. Are you seeing a pattern here yet? Well, we talked about housing. Another huge topic of questions that came in is about transportation. What sort of transportation and roadway projects would you prioritize within the city and in the Tri-Valley region at large? Have your views changed at all in light of the pandemic and economic downturn and their impact on things like jobs, commuting, public transit, and government funding?
My views have not changed since the COVID-19. The impact is still the same. People are still driving. Of course, they're driving a little less right now, but that hasn't changed. Most people in Livermore are more concerned about people speeding in their neighborhoods. They often ask for radar signs or traffic calming devices such as speed humps. So on a local level, I would support the efforts of Traffic Engineering Department and our Livermore Police Department traffic unit. I would ensure that the traffic unit is in place is very, very important. And I would look for 3 ways to, I would support them in 3 key areas. Most of the time as a police officer, when I was working out in traffic myself, when we look at it, we always oftentimes we look at for the 3 E's, the engineering, the enforcement, the education. Oftentimes our department, our police department and the traffic engineering will work together on these things to make sure that, you know, we're able to travel safely through our city. And I would work with the traffic engineering to alleviate congested traffic, such as the horrible traffic on Vasco Road during the commute hours, where people are cutting through neighborhoods as well. On a regional level, I would support the Valley Link project, connecting Ace to BART. This project will create about 22,000 jobs and will remove about 18 to 23,000 cars off the road daily. What matters so much about that is that because when cars are taken off the road, it also means better air quality for Tri-Valley residents and the surrounding cities.
Thank you. And candidate Warner.
Well, transportation is clearly a major issue. I remember when I got here 44 years ago, there was hardly anybody on 580, and now it's quite the opposite. So the highest priority project that impacts the Tri-Valley is Valley Link. I'm on the board of directors of that. We're making good progress, but it's very critical in the next year or 2 to make sure we get all the requisite approvals, and then we get the 400 million. It was allocated from Measure BB to the transportation corridor in the Tri-Valley, get that allocated so we can build a Valley Link and connect it up to BART. I think so that's high priority. The other thing that I'm on the board of directors of Wheels, and what we need to do with the transportation is recover from the pandemic and build back the ridership and make sure that those systems are healthy. Those are top priorities. And then within Livermore, we've got our climate action plan and active transportation plans. And we need to make sure that we can get around in Livermore with minimum impact on the environment and making sure that people can still manage to get through the various streets and they don't clog up. So those are the high level things we need to do. We're going to be updating the general plan, and there'll be much work to do there that will affect our transportation. So thank you.
Thank you. The next question, we will start with Bob Warner. We sort of touched on it a little bit earlier, but let's delve a little deeper. The number of people experiencing homelessness in Livermore is significant and growing. How do you plan to help people who are without proper housing?
Well, there are a number of things, and I've started this several years ago. The first is, how many people do we have? What kind of services do they need? And to what extent will they accept them? And we've started that with surveys, and we've done that now a couple of times. And once we understand that, we'll see that this isn't a simple problem, but it's multifaceted, and there isn't one solution that fits all. So we've got just encouraging, we were mentioning the Chestnut Square project that I was, was part of the approval process for that. We were able to move people who had been on the streets for years, are homeless, in there and give them housing. We've, the hotel that was going to open near the outlet mall, that's now taken on homeless. And we've been able to reduce the number in the arroyos by quite a bit from, I think, a peak of 60 or 70, and it's now 20. And some of the people that are in that hotel, there wasn't all just homeless in the arroyos, but they were able to move into permanent housing already. So we have a number of projects for the housing, and it runs the whole spectrum. But we have, the Chestnut Square, we've got Avance, we have Vineyard 2.0, we've got the 130 units of workforce housing that I proposed for the downtown. So we've got a lot going on, and there's much more to do.
Thank you. Moni Knapp.
Well, this subject is very near and dear to my heart. That is because I grew up in a slave labor camp during the Kimilitosa, Cambodia, where I lived on a little shack with 4 stilts above ground. I also spent 5 years in refugee camps in Thailand, so I know what it means to be homeless. So one of a few things I would do, number one, I would host a symposium on homelessness to educate the public how it impacts our community, including the homeless themselves, the families, the businesses, the healthcare system, and the criminal justice system. I would support the short-term solutions that the city is offering now, such as hotel vouchers, Vineyard 2.0 site, more housing on North Livermore Avenue, overnight parking at various churches, continue to invest in nonprofits such as Open Heart Kitchen and City Serves of the Tri-Valley that provide essential services to the homeless, and also support the 31 tiny houses community at Crosswinds Church. But one of the significant difference that I would do, I would like to work with the Tri-Valley mayors, and by the way, we're gonna get 4 new mayors, the county supervisors, the state rep at the possibility, and the state rep at possibility of putting funds together to put into a coffer to build more tiny houses with wraparound services. Without wraparound services, it won't work in my experience as a police officer. I've seen this firsthand, again and again. And then more importantly, in our city, I think one of the most important things that we could do right now, which hasn't been done, is to host a meeting with the surrounding business owners and the property owners to really actually show them what it looked like at the creek. My question to our vice mayors, have you been to the creek? I would love to know that answer, because you have to see what is going on out there.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Moving on, we're going to go back to candidate Knapp. The city has a downtown improvement plan that has been divisive. How will you work to make sure the city's downtown strategy continues to move forward? What challenges do you see ahead?
How I would work, I know there's still different groups out there that want different priorities in downtown Livermore. But what I would do is I would seek those folks, those leaders out, and ask them to sit down with me if there's ways that we could work together. But for me, I believe it is so important now to move forward with this project without any further delays. And the reason behind that is because I used to live on Railroad Avenue myself, right at the site. I lived next to that vacant lot for a very, very long time, and we have fought about this issue for so many years now. I believe that it's time to move on and get it done. And the reason why is because I believe in the people in this community. The vote was 2-1. And once the people have spoken, everybody got a chance to be participant in this process. And the vote is now 2-1. I believe it's loud and clear that we have to listen to the people and move this project forward and get it to completion. With the impact of COVID-19, of course, it's going to take a little longer. But we must move forward and then get this process done. But those of you who disagree, please sit down with me if there's ways that we can work it out and then find solutions to work together, more importantly than anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Warner?
I think you're right. The downtown project was divisive. There was a decisive decision on the hotel location. I would like to point out that we are moving forward to this expeditiously. However, one of the key foundations of our city is being financially strong, and we're not going to spend the money until we can be sure that we can survive the pandemic. We have the plans for the next stage on the shelf. We pulled them recently, not going out to bid because it wouldn't be prudent financially to rush it. So we're all set. Now, that's from the city's point of view. And I expect we'll start the parking garage the early part of next year because we'll know more clarity on where we stand. I think we're good. The other thing you have to realize is that that downtown project is also partnered with private people who have to raise the money on their own, and the pandemic has hit them. So we are moving forward with them, but I expect there to be a schedule reset in the spring and we'll at the beginning of the year, and we'll get moving on it. Now, with respect to the divisiveness, I have reached out to the other side, and the one remaining element that's been put forth is the 130 units of workforce housing. That's in dispute now. We have a plan that we'll execute on, but I have reached out to the other side and said, let's talk about it, and they've agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question will go to Bob Warner first. There are so many rural properties and wildland areas in and around Livermore. With wildfire season well upon us, how can the city support fire protection and prevention efforts?
How we can, I missed that, how we can support fire protection in the rural properties?
How can the city support fire protection and prevention efforts?
Oh, how can they do that? Well, I think number one, and it comes right to making sure that our first responders have adequate resources, and that's making sure that we're financially strong. And then with that, we can put together educational programs sponsored by the fire departments. Remember, our fire department is jointly done with Pleasanton, and the county fire department handles out in the rural areas. So that requires cooperation amongst all those agencies. And that's developing the specific programs is what we would have to do. And there's a combination of carrot and stick. You can give incentives for the proper treatment of the areas, but on the other hand, we have to enforce the clear areas to prevent the fire spreading. So there are a number of things on both sides that we can do, but it begins with having the resources to do it. And I'm on the board of directors of the Joint Powers Authority with Pleasanton on our fire department. And that is something that we will be discussing at the next board meeting because of its vital importance. And I think, as people may know, we had to activate the Emergency Operations Center, and we were looking at possibly evacuating Livermore because of the fire that was spreading through there. So it's high importance that we are prepared.
Thank you. Moni Na.
Thank you. I too, just like our vice mayor, I would support the fire department with to make sure that they have adequate resources, tools, and safety equipment to protect them. They are amazing. I worked with them for 17 years myself, so I know what the kind of work that they do. They're amazing. So thank you so much for doing that. But second is I would obviously look at the way to how we educate our public as well. We need to let them know if there safety video, is there a mayor could be out and about creating safety videos with the fire personnel and whatnot to educate the public about the fire safety or the hazards of fire altogether and what we can do in order to be better prepared for the fire. And last but not least, I think one of the very important things that we need to speak about is how do we inform the public when there is fire? I think it's really, really important. I would like to see us, personally, I will be out there to see it firsthand because I'm always been a hands-on person. I would be out there firsthand to see what is going on and report back to the residents via a live Facebook post, via interviews with the fire department, whatnot, just to let people know what is going on in our city. I think that's really, really important.
Okay, thank you. I think we might have time for 2 more questions. So, Candidate Knopp, there will be change on the Livermore City Council after this election, with obviously a new mayor and a new council member. As mayor, how would you lead a diverse group of council members to a decision that benefits the entire community?
For me, it has always been about relationships with people. So sitting down with each individual council members and finding out what their interests are. What are some ways that we could work together? What are some differences? What are some key initiatives that we can do here? But I will always look for the best interest of our city. What do we have going on here? How do we make our city better? That's what it comes down to. I just hope that they will be open-minded to having someone like me with a fresh face and fresh ideas and a new voice. But at the end of the day, most everybody that knows me here knows that I've always been about our city, about being the steward of our city, to make sure that we can do it better. What other ways can we do it better? But it always starts with the relationship, getting to know each and every one of them on a personal level, and then asking them how and what ways can we work together. That's the best way to do it.
Thank you. And Candidate Warner.
Well, I've been on the council now 9 years and through multiple councils, and I've always been very effective in working with my fellow council members. And I think we need to realize that each council member has one vote, and we have to work as a team. And the mayor gets to set topics on the agenda, but any other council member can do that as well. So it's very important that we collaborate and have a shared vision, and that we then work towards that. Now, that's not to say that we don't always, we disagree at times and sometimes very spiritedly. But I think the other key here is that we always treat each other as professionals, and we respect what the other people say. And that's been the hallmark of the way I've worked on the council. And it's the way I've worked on all the regional commissions. And I would just continue to do that. I've been very effective in influencing what we do, but it's always been through collaboration. And we do need to, we do understand each other both on a personal and professional level. I think the other thing we have to recognize is that there's the Brown Act, and we are constrained in how we can collaborate. So there are some rules. We have to do it in a very open process, and being freely open to the community with how we're thinking and sharing is the other part of it.
Thank you.
And as Gina said, this will be our final question for the mayoral candidates this evening. Let's go a little broader to your role as mayor in the community at large. Starting with Bob Warner, how can you as mayor foster a more inclusive sense of community in Livermore?
Well, I think I'll do it as Bob Warner and on the council as well as on the mayor, but there are some examples that I think we can point to as to how I do it. We had the recent problem at the farmers market with the cookies and the blow up there. And I brought together Livermore Pride and the Livermore Downtown Inc. And very quickly we brokered a solution that solved the problem. Everybody powered down and we got the farmers market opened again. I think that what I did with the Equity and Inclusion Working Group, and where we formed that, and that subcommittee, and also revealed that what I did was when we had to put a framework together as to how that would carry out its business. And what was unusual, and what I suggested, is we exposed that framework, and we actually worked with the diverse members of the community to craft it before Trish and I did that, before we brought it back to the council for a vote. So I think the key here is, as I said before, working collaboratively, very openly, and including input from everybody. So as those people wrote to us and their concerns, then we called them and had good discussions with the people before we brought forth things for the council to approve.
Thank you. And Moni Na.
Well, first of all, I think that there is a key issue in our city. That's something that we can improve upon. I could speak regarding that further in a little bit. But if you look at my life has always been about including others. I walk and talk equity and inclusion, to be honest with you. If you start by looking at the friends that I'm around. So those of you that know me know that I have friends from every nationalities, In fact, the more diverse you are, the more I like you because you're so much more interesting. You could teach me more about yourself and your culture. But one of the things I would do in this community that hasn't been done yet, I would like to host an annual event called Breaking Bread, Breaking Berry event. It's an annual block party where the residents will take out permits. And once we know what the permits are, we as leaders, myself as a mayor, I would coordinate with all the other different leaders within our community, from every sector of community, from the education world, from the city, from the nonprofit, from the churches, from the business community. And we take a name tag, we take a map, and we go out and meet people for the day. It has not been done that way in a long, long time in this community, and I would like to lead with that. I believe that in order for us to trash each other less and do more for each other, we have to start by knowing more about each other. And I believe in uniting people and bringing people together to make sure that once we know each other, I know for a fact that we'll always do more for each other. Thank you.
Thank you. And that does mark the end of our questioning period for the mayoral candidates. Each candidate will now have up to 3 minutes to provide a closing comment. We will go in reverse alphabetical order this time and start with Bob Warner.
Okay, well, thank you. We've covered many topics tonight concerning Livermore and the future of our wonderful community. And I would just conclude my remarks by summarizing what I think are the most important elements to focus on as we go. And I'll mention along the way some of what I've already done and with my fellow council members and city staff, and describe what I believe is next across the key points. So first of all is ensuring public safety for all in our community. It has been and will be the top priority for local government. It's about half our budget. And I've worked very hard to ensure that we have the adequate resources for our first responders. We've built the Emergency Operations Center, and I was pushing to make sure we had the disaster preparedness. What we really need to do in that area now is reimagine and coordinate our public safety and human services for better outcomes. As I mentioned, preserving our financial strength and maintaining our critical infrastructure. I've, we built back our reserves after the Great Recession very quickly to very high levels. And it's because of that, we were able to have the $2 million matching fund for small businesses. And what we need to do now, though, is continue to help those small businesses survive the pandemic and restore our economic vitality. The next thing is promoting an inclusive community where all are heard and treated respectfully. I think in the past time I've been on the council, it's been about managing our city resources well and making sure we have a good quality of life. I think the key here now is shifting to really examining what our values are, making sure we aspire to a inclusive community and that we get there. And I think the equity and inclusion working group is going to be a key to that. So that's what we're going to focus on. And we'll be engaging with our community to align on our values and follow through with our commitments. Of course, all the time I've been here championing open space has been a big one. I've supported preserving Tesla Park and along with multiple of affordable housing projects because it's open space, smart growth, and diverse housing is a key. And as I mentioned earlier, we have to update the general plan elements for the environmental, business development, and housing and urban growth boundary. And that will be a big deal and very impactful for how we live here. I think finishing the downtown, we're good to go. We just have to do it prudently in the financial things, and we have to help our private partners get the resources together to move forward. But we'll be doing everything we can, and we'll get the clarity next year. And finally, I've got a strong track record for serving on the national, on the regional boards, and we have a lot to accomplish there. So thank you. And track record shows I'm fully prepared to get the job done.
That is the 3 minutes. Thank you. And to wrap up, Moni Knopp.
All of you as voters have extremely important consideration with this election for the future of Livermore. The questions are, who can lead with bold new ideas to move the city forward? And do you have the courage to make a change? It starts with leadership. To me, leadership is about setting an example. For me, I don't ask people to do something I wouldn't do because I will roll up my sleeves and work side by side with you. I will speak up, I right the wrongs, and always include you in the process and get things done for Livermore. Who represents at the top matters greatly because this person can either unite us, divide us, include us, or inspire us. We need a leader who's friendly, approachable, a leader who can see things from a business perspective, a public safety perspective, a common sense perspective, and a nonprofit community perspective. We need a leader who has gone through the ringer, who's resilient, who's tenacious, who better understand you. Without a doubt, I believe that leader is me. We need to pursue more creative ideas to move our city forward. With the crisis of COVID-19, we simply cannot continue to do the same thing all over again. We have to be much more innovative and resilient than any other times in our city's history. Some of my new ideas include establishing an economic task force of Livermore to help struggling businesses, a weekly town hall meeting to keep you much more informed, a Breaking Bread, Breaking Berry annual event to unite our residents, and build a mini library in Livermore to give children access to literacy, where I will donate my entire mayoral salary toward children literacy. Again, I believe that leader, that positive, energetic, and full of ideas leader is also me. Finally, it's about the courage to make a change. Equity and inclusion have always been a part of my life from day one. I stand for change and a new voice. I get that it's hard to make a change. However, please think about our city's history. We're about 143 years old, founded in 1876. Our leaders have spoken about equity and inclusion, but we really haven't acted on it because no person of color have ever served represented in the city council in 143 years history. With a diverse population of almost 100,000 people now, I believe it's time for some fresh new faces and ideas. A vote for me does not mean that we lose our Vice Mayor Bob. After this election, Bob will still be on the city council no matter the outcome. What this means to you is that you could actually have the both of us from day one. I as a member of this community for 25 years now, my heart has always been the right place for Livermore. From patrolling the street and working in the schools as a Livermore police officer and to founding local nonprofits to assist Tri-Valley residents, I've always been a constant and a steward in the Livermore community. I'm a new, energetic leader with the courage to tackle challenges and creative ideas to move Livermore forward. I would be honored to have your vote and know that I will serve you with integrity, distinction, and compassion every day. Please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And on behalf of the Weekly, I would like to thank both candidates for Mayor of Livermore for participating in this first forum. The second forum will begin in about 5 minutes. We're going to take a quick break, but then please join us to hear from the 2 District 3 Council candidates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
How's it going, everyone?
Hey, can you see and hear me?
Welcome or welcome back to the second of two forums tonight. Now we will welcome candidates for the Livermore City Council District 3. Since the last city council election, the city has transitioned from an at-large election process to district elections. This year, we have one contested district race on the November ballot, District 3, with two candidates, Brittany Kik and Pete Patterson. Residents in District 4 will also be voting for a council member in November, but this is an uncontested race with only incumbent Bob Carling on the ballot. I'm Gina Chanel. I'm president and publisher of the Pleasanton Weekly. And Jeremy Walsh, my editor at the Weekly, is my co-moderator tonight. I want to thank our partners, Livermore Chamber of Commerce and Livermore Indivisible, for partnering with us and to Jody Amos from Amos Production for doing the live stream and recording. Thank you to the community members who submitted questions. We got quite a few. And we will not be able to monitor chat, which is why we asked you to send them prior to the event. Our questions, though, are variations of those sent on common themes, all related to the issues that affect the city and its residents. The candidates were not given the questions prior to the event. We will start with 2-minute opening statements from each candidate. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to questions. A countdown timer will be visible to everyone. Candidates going over the time limit will be alerted and stopped. And at the end, each candidate will have 3 minutes for closing statements. So Candidate Kik, because we're going in alphabetical order, you will give your opening statement first, and then we will alternate who speaks first during the questioning portion of the program. Candidate Kik? You're muted. You know what? It happens every time. Oh no. There you go.
All right. This is Zoom life. This is COVID life. My name is Brittany Kik, and I am running for City Council in Livermore District 3. My family and I moved here 5 years ago. My husband is an engineer. He works in Fremont, and we put a pin on the map toward every city and fell in love with Livermore. It reminds me so much of Sonoma County, where I grew up, in San Luis Obispo, where I went to college. Go Mustangs. And for us, you know, we're 30 years old. We have 2 young children, 6 and 3. Homeownership wasn't an option. But for me, putting down roots means serving my community. And so I've been serving my community in a variety of ways, no matter where I've been, whether it was 7 years old on student council, all through high school, all through college, AmeriCorps for 3 years, and then moving to Livermore. I didn't know how to do that as a stay-at-home mom and, you know, work full-time at a nonprofit or any of those things. So I started a business, and I began using my photography and branding business to serve small businesses and help them tell stories that matter, serve nonprofits and help them tell stories that matter. And I got to know the city and its residents and the issues. And I became one of the founding volunteers of Livermore Pride, the first ever LGBTQ nonprofit in the Tri-Valley. And I now serve as the Director of Community Engagement and Education. And that experience, along with a long list of others that you can look on my website, make me feel ready for this position. And I'm excited to have met current council members who have been mentors to me throughout this process. So I feel ready to go on day one. I don't see my timer. Oh, here it is. I have a little bit more time. I don't know. I love Livermore. I want to serve it. I hope that I can serve it well, and I hope this will give you an opportunity to learn a little bit more about me and my positions and my views and the time and effort I've put into studying and really understanding what this job is, so that from day one I can really like hit the ground running to serve our beautiful city.
Thank you. And Candidate Patterson.
Well, good evening, Livermore. Pete Patterson, long-lived resident, born and raised. Came through all the way for Arroyo Seco, all the way up to East Avenue Middle School, go Dolphins, and then good old Livermore High, home of the Cowboys, proud of them. I have a son, a 10-year-old son, as well as a beautiful wife, a 5th generation Livermore. You know, for many years, I've been talking about serving on the community and being a council member, and here it is. I am excited. I'm honored to definitely serve in my district, born and raised in my district, and can't wait to go ahead and start this debate. I've been thinking about it all day. Let's get the show on the road.
Okay. Then I guess we're going to move right into our questioning portion. A reminder, you will have 90 seconds to answer, and Jeremy is going to ask the first question.
Thank you. Good evening. We will go in alphabetical order from here. Gina and I will help guide going forward. And the first question is to Peter Patterson, first off. The COVID-19 health crisis and shelter-in-place orders are soon entering their 8th month. Livermore downtown streets were open for outdoor dining for a few weeks, and businesses asked that to be reversed. Meanwhile, Pleasanton and Danville continued outdoor dining. Do you agree with the decision to discontinue outdoor dining in downtown streets? And what other ideas do you have to help local businesses struggling during the pandemic?
Wow, definitely a tough question. Well, from day one and back in January, I've worked for a medical company that serves on dealing with what's going on with COVID. Personally, myself, I think we should close down the downtown area, reopen for small businesses so they can go ahead and get the support they need from our local residents. We should have started a plan a long time ago. Livermore itself needs to kind of be a little bit more proactive instead of reactive. Looking at the successes down in Pleasanton right now, they're still thriving while our businesses are suffering. With some plans that I would like to put in place, we should speed up the process, being communicative with Alameda County, and definitely open up our small businesses for indoor dining. Let's get them open. Let's get them started, because really at the end of the day, our community is suffering, our businesses are suffering, our wineries are suffering, and we need to get going on helping the cause.
Thank you. Brittany Kik.
So I am actually the author of the Stages Pledge. So if you saw, a lot of businesses participated in Back to Business, which happened in May. A friend and I, we decided that we have these talents as media and communication experts. How can we serve our downtown businesses during this time? We were thinking, maybe we'll get a little bit of information out there and we'll be open up real soon. That was not the case. And so what we did is we created this program, Back to Business. He went out and filmed businesses. We created a partnership with Livermore Downtown Inc. I was on that first project, and I wrote this pledge that said we should be safe, transparent, adaptable, guided by science, equity-minded, and supported by community. And so specifically, when it relates to this issue, I want everybody to remember that if you look at what the city did, they were responding to concerns from business owners who did not feel that they were being treated equally and that restaurants were getting a priority treatment. There were businesses whose business went down when those street closures happened. And so the city is taking an equitable approach. We're trying to make this work for everybody. Not every business in downtown is a restaurant. And so we cannot assume what is best for those businesses, and we need to listen to their feedback. That's why I think it's really important that we have constant communication and partnerships between places like Livermore Downtown Inc. and the Chamber of Commerce and City Council.
Great, thank you. We're going back to Candidate Kik with the second question. The other major storyline this spring and summer has been social justice reform. As a Livermore City Council member, what actions will you take? What policies will you recommend to affect positive change in community policing and criminal justice? Specifically address reallocating funds from the police department budget for mental health services and your priorities for the police leadership change with the retirement of Chief Harris.
So I knew this question was coming, and I appreciate you asking it. If anyone wants a full detailed answer, you can go on my Instagram page. I interviewed Chief Harris a while ago, but Chief Harris retired. That retirement, we knew that was coming, and his replacement that's happening. Mark Roberts is the only person who can hire his replacement. We are a council manager government, meaning that the council does not get to decide who that person is. The police department already put out a survey taking information from residents about what was most important to them in the hiring of the new police chief. When we go into what policies will I advocate for, I advocated for the Equity and Inclusion Working Group that has just begun. We had 45 applications for 18 spots. At that time, I advocated that we let everybody in. I said, I don't know how you guys are going to choose. I was so excited. And they did. They let every single person in. This is not a decision that the police department should make. This is not a decision that city council alone should make. It's a decision the community needs to have an ability to weigh in on. And there is. They are still taking applications for the Equity and Inclusion Working Group. You can go on the city website right now and apply and be a part of this decision making. Also, in Livermore, I know I've got 20 seconds. We actually pay through our police department budget for Horizons Mental Health. That is from our police department budget. That was something that Harris and our Board of Supervisors worked on together to make that happen, I believe. So reallocating to mental health, we're using police funds for mental health at this moment. So the national conversation, sure, not sure about Livermore.
Thank you. Thank you. And candidate Patterson. Wow,
we both knew that question was going to come up. Reallocating funds, I do not see that being a necessary issue. In fact, one of the strong supporters is our POA, the Police Officers Association, as well as our Alameda County Health. They supported me strongly because of this issue. One of the questions I asked our officers when I was getting interviewed was, what can we do as a city to help our officers get better trained, offer new resources, get qualified or other scenarios to help them reallocate the scenario to better assist with what's going on. We do have mental health hotlines right now as we speak, but we also have the community outreach. We have other programs that are going through our police department. And I think as ourselves, our police officers are really good. They've done an astounding job. And with this whole new placement of our chief, I think it's also up to the town to decide who we would love to have as our chief, not just our city manager, but we as a town need to have a say. So I think we should all come together and pick our new chief.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Peter Patterson. Although the county will have the final word on the location of a future solar farm, how do you feel about the proposed location in North Livermore and why? How would you go about working with the Board of Supervisors to ensure the city of Livermore gets a seat at the table when these decisions are being made?
Well, I've been thinking about this for quite some time. You know, it's all about communication. Communication, what's going on with our residents, and communication and what's going on with our senior leadership. We together need to come to a game plan with what's going on. You know, with the solar energy, we definitely need to go green, but what's going on with the county supervisors, I think we need to sit there and reallocate what's going to happen. With that being said, I think we should look at alternatives to go ahead and strengthen our green area, as well as working with our county supervisors to provide some positive feedbacks or ask our town for some feedback. That's what we are. We are a community of one. Let's get to work and start meeting with our county supervisors.
Thank you.
So Jeremy, I was kicked out and then let back in. So if you could repeat the question, that would be great.
I did catch that. Thank you. Although the county will have the final word on the location of a future solar farm,
North Livermore project.
How do you feel about the proposed location in North Livermore and why? And how would you go about working with the Board of Supervisors to ensure the city of Livermore gets a seat at the table when these decisions are being made?
We always have a seat at the table with the County Board of Supervisors. It depends on who's on council, how they communicate and advocate for our community. So I have spoken with both candidates for the Board of Supervisors position in District 3. I understand both of their working styles. I'm ready to work with both of them. So whoever this person is, I feel connected and ready to go. This is not a decision of the city council, as you've mentioned. And something that is important to note is that this is a zoning issue. So this land is not properly zoned for solar. And so the county should really figure out what their zoning plan is, so we don't have all of these one-off projects that turn into arguments. Planning is really important, and the more you plan, the less likely we are to have issues about people arguing about where a solar farm should be, right? Because if it was already in the zoning plan, it would be a clear answer. So advocating through with the Board of Supervisors is something that any city council member will do. It will depend on what commissions I am placed on. I am not sure if I will be placed on a commission that will interact that often with this supervisor, but I understand there is planning that needs to happen, and there's already a lot of community advocacy around this, which I really appreciate. I think everybody needs to get a chance to weigh in, but understand it is not my decision as a council member.
Thank you. Moving on, candidate Kik. The city has a downtown improvement plan that has been divisive. How will you work to make sure the city's downtown strategy continues to move forward? What challenges do you see ahead?
So I think everybody in Livermore remembers Measure P. And I think I actually am so excited about Measure P because for the first time in a long time, we saw people under 45 getting involved in local politics. So I moved to this town after downtown had already been started. I know a lot of young families move here looking forward to seeing that happen. And what's really, really important to me is that in this project, Bob Warner, our current vice mayor, advocated to have 100% of the housing downtown be workforce housing. we need to meet our numbers for the regional housing allocation, RENA numbers. We need to meet those numbers from the county and the state. And it's important that we meet those numbers, not just with, market rate housing, because it's not affordable. We need to focus on keeping our workforce here. And so if we focus on the goal is making sure that if you work at a restaurant, you don't have to drive 2 hours. If you own a restaurant, you need someone last minute constantly. You can't call and say, so-and-so called in sick, can you jump in for a shift if they have to drive 2 hours to work? And we will have a more thriving community if you can afford to work and live where you are. So rather than arguing about the minutia, let's figure out how to agree on the goal and then talk about what is the best plan.
Candidate Patterson.
Well, being a lifelong resident, I've been seeing the town growing from day one, especially with the time when it used to have a tire facility right in downtown. We definitely need to have a look on Measure P. Measure P was a solid, great idea, definitely by Mr. Warner itself. With that, we also have to rebrand ourselves. We're not Napa, but we're also Livermore. We have a lot of things that strive. And definitely with all these things going on, affordable housing is a big thing. My family has had to try utilizing that as well. And we have other residents who are coming in, first-time home buyers that are having the strength. We have groups that will be able to help them out, move further, nonprofits, and get them into a stable home. So moving forward with our downtown is awesome. But we also have to overlook at what's going on in Springtown. We have an abundant amount of growth out there. And I think we should also look into that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Peter Patterson. Sense a pattern building here?
There you are.
In light of the upcoming regional housing needs allocation cycle and the fact Livermore's RENA obligation is likely to increase, how would you go about identifying locations that could accommodate these new affordable housing units?
Ooh, that's a tough question. Well, there's many scenarios that we have to look. Definitely looking at the Planning Commission, as well as talking to other committees that are in this organization. We have to figure out generally what's going on, plan with our city manager, look at different avenues. Like I said before in the last comment, we have some areas that we can help develop, especially out in Springtown. That has been a long-lived gem that we have never looked into. With that being said, we should be able to find more affordable housing, thrive our downtown Livermore, thrive Livermore, period, and keep moving forward.
You're muted, but I think you're saying me, Jeremy. So the RENA numbers, regional housing allocation. So these are numbers that come from the county or the state for anybody watching. And so they let us know that we have to build. It's not a question of if we build, it's how we build. And so having these conversations now are really important. So something that's coming up, for whoever is elected to council next, this person is going to have to understand that the general plan is going to expire in 2025. That is a guiding document of the city that decides how we grow, where we grow, what growth looks like. We also have the Isabel neighborhood project that is something that is being worked on. Valley Link is coming to Livermore, and that will be that neighborhood right there. Ensuring that we are building smart housing that is not only market rate affordable, but affordable by design. So, my family, a couple years ago, this 2-bedroom apartment was no problem for us. We had a small child. It was great. Right now, it's a little cramped because we're all home during COVID, but we don't need big homes and backyards for everybody. What we do need to make sure is that when we are building, we need to meet those needs, but ensure that we're building in a way that creates community. A lot of times in apartments, people lose that sense of community. So we need to create open green spaces. And that's what I'm really happy about when I'm looking at this Isabel neighborhood project, is there are green spaces. How do we advocate for using this affordable housing to create opportunities for green innovation? There's a lot of stuff we can do there.
Thank you. Candidate Kik. Several possible solutions have been identified to improve safety and mobility in the East Avenue corridor. Of these, which do you think are most important and feasible, and why?
So the East Avenue corridor study is going on right now, and they are taking community feedback. You can participate in this study and give your opinions on what's happening. Right now, I forget exactly what the acronym, there's so many acronyms, is for this committee, but they are taking feedback from people that live, work, drive on East Avenue. I live off of East Avenue. We walk there and we go the long way around through the neighborhood back on Charlotte because I don't feel safe walking with a stroller with my kids on East Avenue. So there is a problem. People have died on that street because of this problem. So we need to look at letting the experts do their job. We already have someone in there deciding what's going to work best. If that means more stoplights with the flashing people saying there's a person here, if that means expanding bike lanes, that's actually one of the biggest things. It's a chance to take a look at that survey. And so many people are concerned about bike lanes, probably because of its proximity to the lab. A lot of jobs right there. These are opportunities. Projects like these are opportunities for us to make a difference on climate change in our city. So if we look at these not as just how do we make everybody feel safe, but how do we save our planet at the same time, we can do so much. And our city is really good about getting community feedback. I want to make it clear, city council is not the only person making decisions in your community. You can make decisions by advocating to me.
Thank you. And candidate Patterson.
Well, we definitely need to look at East Avenue. It's always been an ongoing issue, but singling out to single lanes is not the best way to go ahead and maintain traffic. As you know, that we definitely have a school out there, East Avenue School, as well as the community project at LARPD. With that, there will be lots of congestion and definitely, smog and other avenues. It will not be green. So I think we need to really dive into maybe do public transit, maybe a lot better scenarios to go ahead and help our residents get to point A to point B. But bringing it to a single lane is not the best interest, but we definitely need to make it safer.
Thank you. Next question, back to you, Peter Patterson. The number of people experiencing homelessness is significant and growing. How do you plan to help people who are without proper housing?
Ooh. Homelessness is definitely a big issue currently with downtown Livermore, as well as our residents. There's many things that are going on right now. First off, we definitely need to dig down and look at what is the root of the problem. We do have liaisons that are consistently being in contact with our homeless victims, but offering a home is not a solution. It's actually putting a Band-Aid on top of a Band-Aid. We really need to dive into the roots. If we don't look into this, then we will sit there and basically cause a bigger issue that we already currently have. We do have, now for the people who do want to have an opportunity, I say we have programs out there right now. One of them is, giving them a second chance, helps them, guide them through a way. If they need mental help, if they need any other organizations, drug rehab, we need to start that with first. Then the people who are homeless, then we need to figure out as a community and as a town, what can we do to help them out and then offer solutions. But putting them in a little house does not help the cause. It actually inflicts more chaos and chaos. And honestly, my biggest concern right now is the needles and syringes. Safety is first. And, with that being said, we also have to maintain law and order over there by making sure there's no drugs being put in there. So we have to look into the bigger thought.
Thank you. Brittany Kik.
As my opponent aptly said, this is deeper than just not being able to afford a home, but I think people need to understand that this is not all homeless people are living by the creek or doing drugs. Not all homeless people have mental health issues. There are a lot of fully employed, full-time employees that sleep in our safe parking lots across the street from my house over by Asbury Methodist Church. We have started programs recently in Livermore, and we are working with county and state partners to fund those programs. Understanding those partnerships are really important to actually making a difference. We can talk about how it's nice to know why people are homeless, but if you advocate with the county we can let them know that we're part of Alameda too. I know we're all the way out here, but we are part of Alameda. And one of the projects that's happening is the Goodness Village, and that is happening at Crosswinds Church off the freeway. And we got, I believe $1 million from the County Board of Supervisors after, City Council advocated for that, our current homelessness subcommittee. And that is not just putting someone in a tiny home. That's not a Band-Aid. There are services that come along with that. It's actually an incredibly well thought out plan. And you should reach out to Tammy Vallejo and Chris Coley if you want to learn more about that program. This was not a quick fix at all. They are doing a ton of amazing work. And I'm really looking forward to seeing these types of programs continue to expand.
On to the next question, Candidate Kik. As I mentioned earlier, this marks the first city council election under district-based voting for council positions. How do you plan to address the concerns and priorities of the entire city and not just the area you represent? More importantly, what will you do when those needs seem to conflict?
That's a really good question. So what I've been focused on is letting everybody know that I am running in District 3, but I'm representing the entire city. And so the reason district elections are actually important is because it allows somebody like me to run. I don't have wealth. I don't have connections. I knew nothing about how to do this back in June. I'm an experienced community organizer. I'm experienced in nonprofit work, but it wasn't until I had mentors that believed in me that I could do this that I dedicated every day to learning about this. And without wealth and connections in politics, from all the way from the top down to the bottom of the ballot, it's very difficult. This cuts the city in 4 pieces, meaning I only have to talk to a quarter of our community to get out the vote. So I think district elections are important. However, when those needs conflict, I need my district members to remember that I represent the entire city. District elections are different in cities than they are, in state senate or at the national level. And so really the goal of districting is to allow new voices to come in and ensure that we have equitable representation across the city. It's not about focusing on my district where I live. It's focusing on the city and allowing new voices to participate.
Well, I guess it's my turn. Well, let's see. First off, born and raised, love my family, love this community, remember it from day one. Brittany is correct. It's not just representing our district, it's representing our town, our city, who we love, who we grew up. Having those long-lasting relationship has tremendous value. What us as a community needs to reach out more than ever. A lot of the things that I've seen is a lot of people haven't felt like they haven't been heard, not just in my district, but other districts. And that's why I'm advocating for definitely an open forum onto our city website when we have tough decisions that we have to make. Let's hear the community. Let's get everybody riled up. Let's keep moving forward, because if not, then the voices are not heard. Nothing gets done, and we just keep moving on, and things are not as what we expected. So I would like to sit there and keep moving forward and definitely help our community get that voice out.
Thank you. Question number 9, we'll start with Peter Patterson. There are so many rural properties and wildland areas in and around Livermore. As we've seen, wildfire season is well upon us. How can the city support fire protection and prevention efforts?
Okay, so this one is really hit to my heart. The SU fire was a tremendous experience. I love our firefighters. In fact, we need to provide more equipment for our firefighters. Because of the SU fires, we needed to be a little bit more informed what was going on. I was actually up there at the SU fire during the time when I should have been campaigning. With that being said, what I saw was a lot of communications. We definitely need more. Our city was concerned about what was going on. We had some scares, but the fire was not near. We need to have an open discussion. One of my pledges that I would love to do is, again, use our city resources, provide live updates, hire a PR person so we can go ahead and move forward. So if there's any accidents, any brownouts, any scenarios, our town is informed. Our town can feel comfortable we're safe. Providing services for our firefighters, that is the key thing. If we need any more firefighters, we should. We have a lot of dead grass, foliage all around, and we need to sit there and also help strengthen the area, clean out some of the foliages, start up communities to help guide the way so we don't have another terrific, horrific fire that was going on.
Thank you. Brittany Kik.
So I actually agree with Pete on here that we need a PR, a communications director in Livermore. This is something I talk about constantly, how important communication is. It leads to fear. And I've bugged council about it. Believe me, you can ask them. But what I think this question I would like to focus on is those county partnerships and understanding how we can get funding and how these different fires work, right? So it's on the county line, the city line. How do we manage that? And then how do we get that information out? Which is why I'm definitely on board with the communications director. I think that when it comes to fires, we are getting very focused on how do we fix the fire? Like, how do we let people know that we're having a fire? And I want to step back for a minute and think about, why are these fires happening? We can do a lot as a city to create green policy to help mitigate these climate disasters. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a month or in a year, but it is a very important opportunity we have as our general plan is about to expire in 2025 to really think about, how do we move towards a greener community as a city, and then as a region and as a county, so we can start solving the reasons this is happening rather than figuring out, how to survive.
Well, we've talked about fire. Now we're going to talk about water. Candidate Kik, actions by the city and regionally will be needed to ensure Livermore has an adequate and safe supply of drinking water. Diversifying the water supply portfolio has been a goal of Zone 7 in cities since the last drought. How willing are you to raise taxes and/or advocate for a bond to pay for any necessary infrastructure upgrades?
I feel strongly that infrastructure is ridiculously important. I did not understand how important it was until I started doing my research. It doesn't matter what ideas I have about equity and inclusion, and it doesn't matter what ideas I have about communications directors being hired if we don't have water. Water is an equity issue. Water is a housing issue. These are all things that we need to think about through a different lens, the equity lens, which I will view everything through on council. So Zone 7 is in charge of our water in partnership with the city. And we are currently doing a CAMP program, which is the Community Asset Management Project, I believe. And there is a community group that's working on that. And we manage a lot of assets. So those assets are our water and sewage lines and something like a historic building. We need to reprioritize. So I'm not sure that we need to raise taxes or have a bond, but we might need to let go of some things that we hold near and dear to our heart, and figure out another way to pay for historic properties so we can have drinking water. It doesn't matter if you had a beautiful wedding at a historic property if no one could drink anything and everybody was sick. So it's a very unexciting part of local politics, but it's actually extremely important. And I've met amazing people who are experts on this, and I will be taking their advice if I am on council.
Thank you. And candidate Patterson.
Wow, tough question. I definitely agree with Brittany. Water is definitely a key factor in any society as of today. My thought and process would be reaching out to other communities, reaching out to other organizations, and find other ways to manage our water resources and stuff. Zone 7 has been a very strong advocate for us But, taking back from some of our natural roots of like wineries and things of that nature, I don't think that's the best answer. I really do think that, some of the things that we really need to is definitely do some surveys, finding out what new areas. We do have a well that we've never been able to use. With those infrastructures in place, I think we should be able to have a fruitful life with plenty of water. But we also have to have conservation as well. Some of the things that we could add into our city to help lessen the blow on the water. I would probably more advocate for more of a bond instead of raising taxes, because the taxpayers already pay enough. We can't do that to our taxpayers. We need to lower those taxes to go ahead and figure out other solutions.
Thank you. Next question to Peter Patterson. What sort of transportation and roadway projects would you prioritize within the city and in the Tri-Valley region at large? Have your views changed at all in light of the pandemic and economic downturn and their impact on things like jobs, commuting, public transit, and government funding?
Wow. Well, that is a tough question. Transit systems is definitely a big issue at this time. Bringing a railway system is not, I think, is the best interest for Livermore. I think we need to refocus onto green technology. I understand that we do need a transit system, but I would think more of the, clean air buses, electrical buses. Things. The world is our oyster. We should ask, our sister side right next to us, Florence Livermore Lab. They always come up with great ideas, but to offer a opportunity to bring a rail system into our town, that's just not a great idea, in my opinion. And that's just because, looking at our sister cities, when they brought in BART, we've seen crime rate raise at a dramatic rate. With that being said, we need to look at our safety for our community, but also make sure crime is low. So I would probably advocate more for streamline our busing systems and then provide different other ideas of rail systems besides bringing a streamlined rail system into Livermore.
Thank you. Brittany Kik.
So that transit system was just voted on, and that money has been allocated. So I'm excited that Valley Link is going to be here soon. And so what I want to focus on is not just thinking about transportation systems, because what we're seeing with COVID and a lot of people working remote, my husband's working remote for at least another year, help me in this tiny apartment. And I think it's important that we look at how do we create housing opportunities that will lower our VMT numbers, that's vehicle miles traveled. So if we are building smart development that will allow you to walk to where you get your groceries, walk to a transit system, and walk to a park or a place to have some sort of recreation, we can really lower the need for that kind of transit. Our legs are good transit. If you're on wheels, that's good transit too. We have opportunities to think about this as well in a green policy perspective. So Valley Link, I'm excited for. I am an advocate for Valley Link. I am an advocate for transit because transit is an equity issue. And if we can decrease the amount of money people have to spend to get to where they need to go by providing them transit rather than a car, I'm going to advocate for that, along with affordable housing with low VMTs.
Okay, thank you. We are on to our last question. So, Candidate Kik, how are you approaching campaign financing? Are you accepting contributions from special interest groups?
Oh, that's the whole question? I thought you were going to give an example. That's okay.
Police, fire, unions, developers.
No, so I'm taking endorsements from whoever would like. I would like to address one of the endorsements that got mentioned that I didn't get interviewed by the Police Officers Association. So I'm not sure what that would have been like if I would have had that opportunity. But I am taking money from small donors. So I think the biggest donor was family that gave $500. And then I have lots of donations, about $3. So actually right here, I have a coloring book that I created, and it teaches kids about things like homelessness and the services we provide. We provide showers and laundry services. We also, give money to our police and fire. This is my daughter's art. And so these were a $3 download. So I have a lot of $3 donations, which is great because it lets everybody participate and get involved. And it fits along with my mission of educating people about the process. And then I'm trying to think about my donations. I have one PAC. It's the National Organization of Women PAC. I have no money from developers. I have no money coming in from unions that I'm aware of. And my goal is to keep money coming from voters, individuals that I will actually serve. I'm a big advocate for trying to figure out how we can increase our communication systems as a city to lower the cost of campaigning. It's ridiculous how much money it costs to run in a local election. And I have a lot of ideas for that. We can talk about it later.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Patterson.
Campaigning. Oh my gosh. Brittany and I could both agree on this. Campaigning is definitely an expensive adventure. Excuse me. I did receive an endorsement from our POA, and with that being said, and Alameda County Sheriffs, they were a strong provider of helping me moving forward in my campaign. Why? Because I saw a lot of benefits that they've had to offer, a lot of great things that came about. When I was up at the SCU fire, when a lot of people see the negativity of our officers, I actually saw the positivity. So when those fires were going on, our Alameda County Sheriffs had a truck filled with feed, filled with hay, calling ranchers, asking them if they want to go ahead and, hey, I'm up at your ranch. Let me go ahead and feed your cattle. I'll lock the gate. Yes, your house is fine. Following up. With that being said, I was honored to go ahead and accept their endorsements. With that being said, I do get small donations from family, friends, as well as the community as well. And we just keep moving forward, But I agree with Brittany. We need to keep the campaigning to a low minimum because one of the things I kept on saying was, times are tough right now, especially with COVID. A lot of people are not working, and I don't want to burden on our residents to ask for donations.
Thank you. And as Gina said, that does mark the end of our questioning period this evening. Each candidate will now have up to 3 minutes to provide closing comments. We will go in reverse alphabetical order this time and start with Peter Patterson.
Fantastic. So in closing, a lot of things have been said tonight, but we always have to look at the difference. Our community has a chance to vote. Our district has a chance to vote. This is the first time that we as a district get to vote for our own candidate to be representatives on city council. Myself, I was born and raised here. I love our schools. We definitely need to do more, and I want to work for our community. A lot of the things that I've noticed is at the end of the day, our community feels like they haven't been heard. Well, I'm here. I want to hear from you. We serve the public. And with that being said, obstacles doesn't need to be. We're here to help. So please vote for Pete Patterson. I'm here to serve our community.
Thank you. And to wrap things up this evening, Brittany Kik.
So the reason I'm asking for your vote and the reason I asked for donations from community members is that this is not about me winning. This is about a voice for equity and inclusion and someone who has put a ridiculous amount of time into understanding how the system works. I am so honored to have been asked to run by our current city council member, Trish Monroe. She trusted me. She believed in me. She's mentored me. And this is my promise to anybody that's watching. Every second I'm on council, I will spend that educating you on how to get involved. I am currently writing a blog. It hasn't gone live yet. Campaigning's a little bit busy. It's called Couch to Council. And it's just, how do you get involved in your community? Little examples of that have come out slowly are this coloring book, right? So my main goal is speaking with people, getting connected. And I want to make it clear that you don't need to grow up where you decide to make your home. You don't need to own a home. I've gotten some interesting comments that I shouldn't be able to run because I don't own a home. But really, I serve this community because this is where I chose to raise my family. I am so proud and so lucky to live in Livermore. it is my duty to serve my community. I've been serving this community for the 5 years I've been here. I was the lead organizer on the March for Science in 2017. I was very, very pregnant. My son decided he was going to be born early, and I missed that march, but I trained and mentored people to take over for me just in case I went into labor, which I did. After that, building my business and supporting small businesses is something that I had been working and doing, which is the first time Trish and I had a really long conversation about this Stages pledge that I was writing. And after that, in addition to building Livermore Pride has been, like my third child. I am so happy that this organization is getting off the ground. I also want to mention that this is something that anybody can do. Anybody can do this. There are no requirements other than you are 18 and you are a voter. You need to do the research, you need to give it your all, and you need to love Livermore. That's all you need to do to be a city council member. It's kind of like going back to school for me. That's been kind of exciting. The number of books I'm reading, who knew I'd be excited about reading a general plan? But I really am. My life has been about service since I was 7 years old. My mom found a letter I wrote to my teacher asking to be on council as I started to run. And my why is always service. The how has just changed. So over time, it's changed and pivoted. And when this door got opened for me by Trish, absolutely, I was going to grab onto that. And I appreciate this opportunity. This isn't just a vote for me. This is a vote for new people to get involved and have a voice in the community.
Thank you. On behalf of the Weekly, I would like to thank the candidates for District 3, Livermore City Council candidates, for participating, and to a big thank you to our partners, the Livermore Chamber of Commerce and Livermore Indivisible. Again, thank you to Amos Production for live streaming this and recording it. The videos of both forums will be available soon on the city's website and the Weekly's website. And the Weekly will have a story about this in a couple days. I think that's right, Jeremy. The Weekly and its sister news site, Danville San Ramon, are the most trusted news sources in the Tri-Valley. You can stay up to date with our free weekly e-newsletter, The Express, by signing up at pleasantonweekly.com/express. Thank you for joining us tonight, and good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Bye.